You definitely shouldn't start your preparation by taking an ACT, just to see where you stand. So I've been getting a lot of families messaging me over on Instagram saying that they're going to start their ACT prep by signing up for a real ACT, just so they can get a baseline and they can see where they stand. So I told all these families that that's just a huge mistake, and there's one thing that they should be doing instead of that. Now in this video, we're going to be going over exactly why taking an ACT just to see where you stand is a big mistake, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you should be doing instead that can save you a lot of time and money. I got a perfect 36 on my ACT, and over the last 6 years, I've helped thousands of families to get to their dream scores on this test as well. And the reason I make these videos is to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that I made in the past and that many of my students have made in the past. And I've seen a ton of students who want to make this exact mistake, where they just want to see where they start out on the ACT, so they go in, they sign up for an official ACT, just so they can see where they start out and ideally get a feeling for their strengths and weaknesses. And of course, I'm a big fan of finding out what your strengths and weaknesses are. If you've ever heard me in any of my videos, that's one of the big things that I talk about. But taking an ACT is not the right way to find out your strengths and weaknesses. The students who do this are wasting their time and their money and potentially derailing their entire preparation process. I've had a couple students join my coaching program who have done this exact thing, and basically we had to throw away all of the preparation that they'd done leading up to that, which is a huge waste of their time and their money. So let's dive into the problems with doing that. Now, the first big problem with signing up for an ACT so that you can use it as a diagnostic or a baseline is that you have to play by the ACT's schedule, which may or may not align with your schedule. The ACT only offers about 8 test dates per year, and you have to sign up for these things at least a month in advance. So you're wasting a lot of time if you're waiting for at least a month, likely more than a month, for that one ACT test date that happens to fit your schedule in order to get your baseline done. If you want to be as efficient with your ACT prep as possible, then you don't want to just be sitting around waiting for that one test day that happened to fit your schedule. And the second big problem that I see with signing up for and taking an official ACT as your baseline is that you're paying the ACT a bunch of registration fees, which at this point might be like $80 or $100 or something like that, for literally no reason. There's no reason to use this test as a baseline, and there's no reason for us to be paying the ACT company a bunch of fees so that they can give us a score that's not going to be our best score. And the third reason, which is by far the most important one for why we don't want to be taking the ACT as a baseline, is that they don't give us a detailed score report with all of the questions that we got right, and more importantly, all the questions that we got wrong. Unless it happens to be the ACT that's a test information release, which doesn't happen that often, and you have to pay extra fees in order to get that, then you're not going to be able to see all the questions that you got wrong, and you're not going to be able to identify the highest priority areas that you need to study for the next time you take the ACT. All you're going to get is the very generic, broad ACT feedback that will not help you at all. When the ACT gives you your score report, they just break it down into your section scores, like you got a certain score in math, English, reading, and science, and then they break it down a little bit more than that, but there's really no details that are actually useful for us. For example, on the math section, they break math into algebra, geometry, and statistics, and a couple of other things. But one of those categories is the combination of all essential skills, which tells you absolutely nothing about which questions you're missing. And these questions make up about 40% of the math section. So even if we look at the score breakdown that they give us, 40% of the math questions, we have absolutely no idea which type of question it was. And for example, if we do look at, we're missing a lot of geometry questions, there are 50 different types of geometry questions on the ACT, and just saying that we missed some geometry questions and we're weak and that's a high priority area for us does not tell you exactly which question types that we need to work on within geometry. We're still just playing a guessing game, and that's not what we want to do with our ACT prep. The very first step of the ACT hacking process that I've used to consistently get students to improve their scores by 4 or more points is finding our highest priority question types to work on first. And if we take this official ACT as our baseline, we're going to have no idea what our highest priority question types are. And that means we're gonna have no chance of going through the most efficient preparation process. So here's what you should do instead of signing up for that official ACT as your baseline. What we need to do is go online and find a recent ACT that they've actually administered in the past as a real test, find the answer key and find the scoring scale for that, So you can grade your test, see all the incorrect answers, and put it on the ACT's grading scale out of 36. Now, the benefits of doing this are that if you do this, then you don't have to have any of the negatives associated with taking that official ACT test. You don't have to play by the ACT's schedule. You can pick a time that works for you. You don't have to pay their fees. You don't have to worry about whether you're signing up too late or too early, and you don't have to waste your time waiting around for that next ACT. Plus, you get the benefit of actually seeing every single question that you got right and every single question that you got wrong, so that you can go through the process of categorizing those question types that are going to be your highest priority. Now, specifically when you find this real ACT and you use it as your diagnostic test, there's a couple things that you want to look out for. You want to take this test in as realistic of a setting as possible. You want to mimic all of the conditions that the real ACT would have been given to you under. So ideally, you want to take this at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, just like the real ACT would be. You would want to print it all out along with the bubble sheet, so you're not just taking it on your computer in a setting that you're not going to be taking the real ACT in. And you're going to want to sit down in a quiet room where you can take this test uninterrupted for 3 hours. All of this stuff to make it realistic is incredibly important. I worked with a student recently named Rachel, and she was actually taking practice tests and taking diagnostic tests and everything like that, but she was doing it in an unrealistic setting. She was splitting the test up and taking it over multiple days, not taking it all at one time. And she was also not using the printed out bubble sheet version. She was just taking it online and then writing her answers down. And this is a completely unrealistic way of taking the test. And she realized this when she got into the real ACT test and she had simulated the wrong conditions. She was running out of time on the test because she was unprepared when she was going through the practice process and the diagnostic process. So one of the biggest things that we changed when I worked with Rachel is that we took a diagnostic and a realistic test environment, and we did all of her practice again in a realistic test environment. And this was one of the biggest factors that took Rachel from a 30 all the way up to a 34. This is absolutely critical stuff that you want to be paying attention to. Don't just brush this stuff aside as like, oh yeah, okay, cool, I'll just take the test whenever I want to. If you don't go through the right process when you're starting off your preparation, you're going to end up misidentifying your highest priority areas, and in your whole ACT prep, it can probably just be thrown out the window. So basically, as a quick recap, don't take the official ACT as a diagnostic test. Find a realistic ACT online that you can take for free and use that as your baseline. Now, if you don't want that to happen and you want to take all the guesswork out of this process and have me guide your student all the way from start to finish on the ACT, then you can apply to join my coaching program, where I'll take them by the hand and make sure that they get exactly where they need to go. You can check out the information in the description below this video for more on how to apply to that. One of the ways that you can always get in contact with me is through Instagram. So if you're interested in the coaching program, go over to my Instagram page and message me the word boost. That lets me know that you want to brainstorm a plan for you or your student, and we can talk about the best way to get your student to their target score. But other than that, stay tuned to the channel both here on YouTube and over on Instagram for more free information on how to improve your ACT score, get into the best colleges, and earn the most money in scholarships. I'll see you in the next one.